As the country contends with this rolling blackout, you heard the president of the ANC address crowds saying that they acknowledged that the governing party has received diminished votes, but not really addressing the issue of load shedding, which many people are really umbraged by. We're speaking to business and we'll be speaking to various entities about this. The cost to the economy, according to a well-known expert, the economy during stage 1 load shedding, which is 10 hours of blackouts, loses about 20 days per month. That's about 20 billion rand per month. Now, how can entrepreneurs or investors have any confidence in a future when confronted with constant rolling blackouts? This is the question many small businesses are clearly asking at this moment. To speak about this, the latest round of load shedding, we're on the line, or rather joined by John Dludlu, who is CEO of the Small Business Institute, and Wendy, CEO of RASA, which is the Restaurant Association of South Africa. Very good evening to you both. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, John, let me start with you. Can the sector think of growth or even expansion in this climate?
Unfortunately, no, Tippy. So thank you for inviting us, and good evening to Wendy. Let's not forget where we're coming from. We're coming from COVID, prolonged lockdown. We're coming from the mayhem in KZN and Gauteng, and now we have this sledgehammer on an industry that's already reeling from other pressures that were pre-existing before March 2020. So I think what is going on now is we really have to defer all the forecasts of an economic recovery by maybe another few months, because if you look at the impact of the July events, that has not worked its way into the economy yet. Fortunately, I think we expect those figures to sort of show through in the upcoming GDP numbers. So it's really bad, catastrophic.
Wendy, just talk to us about restaurants, how they are dealing, so to speak. I mean, we spoke to you plenty of times during COVID-19, the various lockdowns that had a devastating effect on tourism industry, including restaurants, which fall very much within this sector. How does one really run a business and understand a complex business like Eskom and how they can fit into that matrix to foresee the challenges that they then in turn have to contend with?
Absolutely. I mean, we're very concerned about the consistent, continuous blackouts that we're having within the restaurants. It's having a massive impact on our ability to recover, to get to some ability to bring momentum back into the restaurants. We've had 2 terrible years of COVID, and the impact of load shedding is just lending itself to further difficulties within the restaurant sector. First of all, it's really costly for us to be able to run these generators. Many of our restaurants don't have generators. We're relying on the landlords to provide the alternative energy solutions. And we certainly need manpower to consistently run the generator, to put it on, to consistently fill it up, to be able to ensure it runs properly. They're messy, they're smelly, they're noisy, they interrupt the flow of our businesses. Our credit card machines can't work, the computer systems can't work. A number of the pieces of equipment in the kitchens can't be utilized. We've got to change our menus. Traffic lights don't work, so we can't get staff back into our businesses properly. So we have a shortage of staff on shifts. And it just does further damage to our businesses. And one would think, you know, we've been going through load shedding for a number of years, that there would be more intelligent ways for Eskom to actually sit around a table and look at better solutions that have minimal impact and less consequences on the economy. They have a responsibility to provide electricity that does not damage the economy. And we are certainly going to do what we can as an industry, as a hospitality industry, as a tourism industry, to collaborate with other partners to hold Eskom accountable for the continued losses that we're taking. We cannot survive further impacts on our businesses, and this is just devastating to the recovery that we're trying so difficultly to forge through.
And John, I'd like to hear from you. The president is saying that he's optimistic. So while South Africans are without electricity due to these power cuts, he says he's hopeful that the latest energy investments from COP26 will help South Africa emerge from its energy crisis. Do you think businesses, small businesses, are able to think within this vein? Does the sector really share this optimism?
Sadly, we've seen quite a lot of resilience during the COVID period, but I doubt that our constituency and the SME ecosystem shares this confidence because let's not forget what's been happening. There's been quite a lot of hopeful messages coming out of government around we'll fix Eskom, we'll split Eskom into three subsidiaries, introduce competition. Unfortunately, all of those things, including the announcement last week about the 30 billion rand injection to help Eskom transition into clean energy, are long-term issues. What business needs is they need short-term relief measures like today, not next week, not next year. Those measures are fairly long-term. Unfortunately, they will not provide any relief in the medium term. As is the opening of Window 5, the IPPs last week. Again, it will take a long time to work itself into the economy, not today.
Wendy, you've just spoken about those who do have generators and the unforeseen, if it were, impacts of that. You spoke about the noise, and obviously it's not always a pleasant smell coming out of those. But given these controlled blackouts, and I say controlled in air quotes here, can the sector get used to it? We've seen in many an African country, they've had to get used to it. Is this something that you see for the South African small to medium business sector?
If Eskom really just sat around the table and actually consulted with various sectors of business, they could come up with intelligent ways not to impact peak trading hours like nighttime trading that we have within restaurants. If we look at the cost to run a generator, to service a generator, the damage it does on the carbon footprint, it's noisy, it's smelly. Some establishments simply don't have the facility to be able to put a generator in place.
I do apologize.